what's back to the uniqueness of Washington? What is unique about our weather matrix?
Well, we have the ocean
location?
close by. We have the Chesapeake Bay. We have the mountains to our west, which are significant.
They protect us.
Well, they tend to
From the
bring
big
in the cold
nasty
air,
storms.
the big nasty storms, some of those
Thunderstorms.
violent things,
Right.
and all of that converges. It's interesting. One of the things that we found recently is that, and you think about Charles County with the number of tornadoes that have been in La Plata and in that band. Well, in the springtime, the bay breeze, there's actually a bay breeze. Annapolis will be much cooler, so there'll be a breeze coming up the bay. We don't think of, we think of ocean breezes that will tend to converge from Annapolis down through Charles County into St. Mary's County. So you've got some warmer air on one side, and it forms this small scale convergence area, which then tends to be the focus for some strong, severe thunderstorms, and with a little bit of rolling in the atmosphere can generate tornadoes. So just on a small scale, those are things we didn't know about years ago.
Do we have a sister city anywhere in the world that has our same climate?
Well, the last places I worked and busted the forecast, and Boston is
like
always a
us?
challenge. Philadelphia, any places sort of along there.
But what's like us elsewhere in the world? I mean, is there a
world.
comparable to the Mid-Atlantic?
You know what? I'm sure there are, but I can't think right offhand of this area, and it extends down a bit to the south. But when you look at in a winter, St. Mary's County may get an average of 10, 15 inches. Frederick County gets an average of 40, 45 inches, and that's all within my viewing area and our viewing area. So it's a challenge.
What's a perfect day?
For me?
Well, I mean, we can get to that.
Well, outside of the personal life.
But in conventional terms.
I mean, I still am a snow lover. And
snow lover.
And if I see a big snowstorm coming properly, I mean, that's what you, I mean, that's.
Would you seek that out for a holiday?
If I were
skiing, you go. I mean, do you design your holidays?
Oh no, do I?
Weather?
Am I travel for snowstorms? No, I don't think we do that.
I mean, what I'm saying is, do you pick places to go?
I would. It's funny. I would love to. And sometimes when we would go skiing, I love to go and enjoy walking in the snow and enjoying the snow, but knowing that the phone is not going to ring, saying there's a snowstorm coming. You got to get in here at 10 o'clock in the morning and work 14 hours. Some of the most wonderful, after I finished, and we've had some minor snowstorms, I'll go home and Olga and I will go out for a walk at midnight or 12:30 and just walk around, and it's magical. A little bit of light leftover snow, and
snow in the middle of the night's awesome.
And there's nobody there, and we're walking around. So those are special days.
But by
torrential rains, floods, tornadoes.
They don't do it for you the same way.
Well, no, I mean, because tornadoes, are deadly.
When was the last time the weather surprised you?
This week, or
I mean, does it ever surprise you?
Oh yes, my favorite, and my dear friend Arch would remember that. It was back in November of '87, Veterans Day, the Veterans Day storm. And I was looking at all the maps, and I was saying, this was early November, really. And I was saying, boy, if this were December, January, I think there'd be quite a snow. And I think I went out on a limb and said there might be actually some wet snow flurries. It was 11 inches of snow in Washington and shut down the place. So, that.
This doesn't keep you awake at night, though, does it?
Used to.
Really? But you've gotten over that.
No, when I first started and happened to move into broadcasting, I would wake up at 4 o'clock and rush to the window to see if my forecast was correct in Boston. And after about a week of that, it said either your health is going to suffer or you're going to bust some forecasts.
Do you keep weather gear at home?
Oh yeah, I have a weather station.
You have a little weather station.
And a Bronco.
Right. Well, I guess the web has changed this, but I was wondering if there have ever been times when you left work at 11 and you wished you could go back on the air an hour later and say, I've completely changed my forecast.
Usually not at 11, because by then some of the late stuff, but there have been cases where I went home and then all of a sudden for dinner, and a terrible thunderstorm comes up and warnings starting to come out, and I rush back in.
So you say you got interested in this
Small
when
scale,
right.
small scale things.
But a 12-year-old Bob Ryan gets
Yeah.
interested in weather. How does that happen?
Um,
Or was it science first?
no, it was the way I was born. That
Yeah.
when I talk to young people and you say, well, and the sky, and as always, I just loved. I was a paper boy, so I was out in the weather.
Right.
And but I
Morning
grew,
route or evening route?
evening route.
Okay.
So I had snowstorms, and I had. And I grew up north of New York City, so we had a great
north?
variety, not about 40 miles north, the
Yeah.
Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
And I could watch thunderstorms coming out over the mountains in Rockville County, and we had great snowstorms there, and a wonderful variety of weather. And I always just loved watching the weather, and so, but then in school, I remember at the ninth grade, we probably all did this, you would be an assignment looking at a career, and my father got me a government occupational outlook handbook, and then you'd only be a meteorologist pretty much working for the government. And,
Right.
and it would be shift work.
Right.
And the idea, I always like sleeping late, the idea of working midnight to 8 o'clock in the morning just did not appeal to me at that point. So I put the meteorology aside,
Right.
and still liked science and studied science.
Right.
But then when I got into college, I came back and took it as a few electives, and was fortunate to hook up with a wonderful, wonderful advisor when I did my graduate work, and here we are.
Well, but it's never that simple. you had to get into broadcasting in some way. I mean that's a big leap from being basically a scientist.
Yeah.
You're much
Yeah.
more of a scientist than the average weather
Well, I
forecaster.
haven't published anything in a few years.
Well, I mean, I was looking at your. You have a master's, and I mean, you. One could argue you're overqualified, but then where else are you going to get the salary that you get in TV? So we let you.
No,
off
I
the
was
hook.
studying. I was actually we were flying instruments to look at clouds, and back then they were concerned, is it a cloud or a missile plume? And so that's some of the things we were doing. We had an instrument in a U-2. I was not in the U-2, but
But where were you working when you were doing
in Boston.
Right.
And we were doing things at Patrick Air Force Base, and a UHF, and I tell this story, and it is a true story. UHF station, it started at 10 o'clock news in Boston, one of the first 10 o'clock news, and I happened to see it in the paper, and all, I think, young meteorologists watch people on TV and say, oh, I can do that. So I called up the news director who was at that time, and I said, were you interested in a meteorologist to do the weather? And those were the big hair days, I had this huge mound of red hair and
Ted Baxter.
What? It was bigger than that. So I went down and I put together a couple of little maps on a shirt cardboard and practiced in front of my girlfriend, and she would give me a critique, and I went down and had a stiff drink before I went down and did a little audition, and who knows why. And he said, I'd never been on television. I got it.
You got it.
And so, like the kid, and now what am I going to do? So
Negotiate a good salary.
no, it wasn't at that time. I don't know. I got $50.
Yeah.
And so I would go down I had my regular job. I'd go down about 8:30, 9 o'clock, have dinner, and then go down and do the 10 o'clock news. Then we did a 10 to 10:30 news. And Bill Wheatley was a reporter who went on to become the executive producer for NBC Nightly News.
Right.
Arch McDonald, anybody from Boston that remembers Arch McDonald, was a grand anchor for years. Fred Cusick did the Boston Bruins sports, and I did the weather. And after about 9 months, I got a call from the producer at my regular job on a Wednesday. He said, don't bother coming in tonight. I said, why not? He said, they've canceled the news. So that was the end of the 10 o'clock news. And so then I was out.
But you'd been bitten by the bug at that point.
And then I had my regular job and some contracts, and then another station in Providence was in the middle of some terrible strike, couldn't find anybody and happened to hear that I had.
You were available.
And you're in your 20s, and you say, why not? Let me give it a try.
Right.
And there we are.
But how did you then go from that to being the first weatherman ever on the Today Show?
Well, I went back to, after a year and a half, went back to Boston, started the morning, then got moved into the evening, and got a call from the executive producer.
I just wondered if Wheatley was in any way the connection.
No. He'd moved. But John Coleman was on Good Morning America and was very, very successful as meteorologist and weather.